All right, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on electric shock. We'll get into what it is, how to stay safe, and why even a little zap is a really big deal. Let's dive in. We're kicking things off with this quote from the Electrical Safety Authority, because honestly, it's the most important thing you need to hear. So many of us have felt a tiny shock from an outlet or appliance and just, shaken it off. But that mindset, it's a seriously dangerous one to have. And if you need a number to drive that home, here it is. In Ontario alone, on average, more than 110 kids end up in the emergency room every single year because of electrical injuries. And get this, over half of them are under 5 years old. So this isn't some far-off problem. It's a real danger, potentially right there in our own homes. Okay, so let's get to the most important part. How do we stop these things from ever happening? This is all about taking simple, proactive steps to keep everyone around you safe. Here are some super simple fixes you can literally do today. First off, look at your outlet covers. If they're cracked or missing, replace them. That little piece of plastic is a critical barrier. For those with kids, install tamper-resistant outlets. They've got these built-in shutters that stop little objects from getting poked in there. Next, tidy up those loose cords. Don't leave them where they can be yanked on or chewed. And please, instead of daisy-chaining extension cords, just grab a proper power bar. And finally, this one's a biggie. Anywhere there's water, like your kitchen or bathroom, you absolutely need ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs. They are designed to till the power in a split second if they sense a problem. Now, this idea of being proactive gets, really systematic in a professional setting. Workplaces use something called the hierarchy of controls. The logic is simple. You always start with the absolute best solution and then work your way down. The number one goal is always elimination, just getting rid of the hazard completely. If you can't do that, you move down the list to things like engineering controls, which are physical safety measures. And way down at the bottom, your last lines of defense are administrative rules and finally personal protective equipment, or PPE. So here's a perfect example of one of those engineering controls. This is a residual current device, or an RCD. You might just know it as a safety switch. Think of it like a hypersensitive bodyguard for your electrical circuit. It's constantly watching the flow of electricity, and the second it detects a tiny, dangerous leak, like the current starting to pass through a person, bam! It cuts the power in milliseconds, way before any serious harm can be done.
And this tag? This is a classic example of an administrative control. It's a core part of the lockout-tagout system. When a piece of equipment needs to be serviced, a lock and this very tag get placed on the power switch. It's a really simple procedure, but it's a lifesaver, making sure nobody can just accidentally flip the power back on while someone's working on it.
So, we've talked prevention, but what is actually going on inside your body during an electric shock? To really understand the danger, you got to understand the science.
Okay, so to get why a shock is so damaging, you have to know the difference between voltage and current. The easiest way to think about it is this. Voltage is the pressure, the push, but it's the current. That's the actual flow of electricity, measured in amps, that does the real damage. High voltage by itself isn't the problem. It's only dangerous because it has the power to push a whole lot of current through you. And just look at how little current it takes to be incredibly dangerous. 1 milliamp? You'd barely even feel a tingle. But jump up to just 20 milliamps, that's 2/100ths of an amp, and it's enough to paralyze the muscles you use to breathe. At 100 milliamps, your heart can go into what's called ventricular fibrillation, which is very often fatal. Now think about this. The circuit breaker in your wall is probably rated for 15 or 20 amps. That is literally thousands of times more current than the amount that can kill you. So what's stopping that from happening all of the time? Well, it's your skin. It is your body's first and best line of defense. A dry, calloused hand can have an electrical resistance of over 100,000 ohms. Now compare that to your internal body, which is only about 300 ohms. That massive difference is what's protecting you. Well, most of the time. But here's the thing. That defense is actually pretty fragile. A simple cut or a scrape can create a direct path, bypassing it completely. Enough voltage can just punch right through it. But the most common, the most dangerous factor that we all have to worry about, water. Getting wet pretty much eliminates almost all of your skin's protective resistance. And this is one of the most terrifying parts of an AC electric shock. It's called the let-go phenomenon. At a certain level, the alternating current causes your muscles to contract violently and continuously. The thing is, the flexor muscles in your arm, the ones that make a fist, are stronger than your extensor muscles. So this stimulation forces your hand to grip onto the source of the shock even tighter, making it impossible to let go and making the injury so much worse. Knowing the science is one thing,
But knowing exactly what to do in that moment is something else entirely. So this section is a clear step-by-step guide for what to do if you ever see someone getting an electric shock.
So let's just pause and think about this for a second. You see someone getting a shock. Your first instinct, your human instinct, is to run over and help them. But what is the absolute number one most critical first step you have to take?
This is it. You do not touch them. I'll say it again, do not touch the person. If you touch someone who's still in contact with a live current, that electricity will flow right through you, and now you're a second victim. Your first job is to protect yourself. You can't help anyone if you're also getting shocked. So here's the game plan. Step 1. Secure the scene. If you can, turn off the power at the source, like a breaker box. If you can't, use something dry and non-conductive, like a wooden broom handle, not metal, to push the person away from the source. Step 2. Call for help. Dial 911 or your local emergency number right away. Step 3. Check and act. Once the scene is safe, check for a pulse. If there's no pulse, start CPR. And finally, for any burns, run cool, not cold, water over them for at least 20 minutes. Now, there's a special case here that is extremely dangerous. Downed high-voltage wires. Do not go anywhere near them. Electricity can actually travel through the ground itself. You need to stay at least 20 feet away. That's about 6 meters, and even farther if the wires are sparking or it's wet. We've covered prevention, the science, and first aid. But the story isn't over when the electricity stops flowing. This last section is all about the hidden, long-term consequences that make every single shock a serious medical event. This is something most people just don't realize. With an electric shock, the real danger might not even start until after the current is gone. See, as electricity passes through your body, it can cook tissues and cause massive internal damage that you just can't see from the outside. The shock itself is often just the beginning of the problem.
The list of potential delayed symptoms is, well, it's staggering. We're talking days, weeks, even months later. A person might start having heart arrhythmias, nerve damage, memory loss, vision problems like cataracts, chronic pain, and even severe depression. All from a shock that might have seemed minor when it happened. So why does this happen? How do these serious symptoms get missed? Well, there are a couple of big reasons. First is something called masking. The pain from a really obvious external burn can be so bad that it completely hides the feeling of deeper injuries. The second is misdiagnosis, where doctors might, understandably, focus on the visible wound and not realize the true extent of the invisible damage inside. And that brings us right back to where we started, full circle. This quote says it all. There is no such thing as a safe shock, because you simply can't know what kind of damage has been done internally right when it happens. Every single shock, no matter how small it seems, needs to be checked out by a medical professional. So we'll leave you with this final thought. After a shock, that visible burn on the skin might be the smallest part of the injury, just the tip of the iceberg. The real question you always have to ask is, what invisible damage could be hiding inside? That's why you always get it checked out.